Hello and welcome to episode 2 of Quarantine with Fulbrighters. I'm your host Shazad Ghyas and I'm feeling slightly old today as I'm from the Fulbright 2013-2015 cohort and we have somebody today here with us from the 2017 cohort who's already done phenomenal work after coming back. Hi Aisha Memon, how are you doing?
I'm good, Shazad. How are you doing?
Good, good, good. How is the quarantine treating you?
It's been very busy. It's been very productive.
How's it been productive for you? We need some techniques on how to be productive in this quarantine.
I understand there are so many people I hear who say that they're getting bored in quarantine, but it's been very very busy for me. I had an initiative called Baithak Challenging Taboos, which works in sexual and reproductive health and rights of women in Jamshoro, especially menstrual hygiene management. And since this lockdown period started, we realized that a lot of women that we work with, like a lot of women in the communities we work in, are losing access to menstrual hygiene products due to the lockdown. So we have been preparing menstrual hygiene kits and donating these to women in low-income communities, and that's what I've been doing throughout my lockdown and quarantine.
I think it's a brilliant initiative, especially in a country like Pakistan where menstruation is such a taboo to even talk about. We talk about urban centers where even in a city like Karachi, if you go to buy a pad, they'll put it in a brown bag for you as if it's something illegal that they're selling. So your work is mainly situated in Jamshoro, right?
Exactly. Yes.
So why Jamshoro? Why did you select that place to start this initiative?
So I chose to do it in Jamshoro because I was born and raised in Kotli, which is a small town in Jamshoro. I belong to this place. I understand this community, and I do feel that I owe back to the community I have been raised in. And I think that's what I believe in. A lot of us get good opportunities. We move out of our communities. We grow and learn. But if we do not give back to the communities, our communities stay stagnant and they never grow. And also, like, I understand the demographics, I understand the culture and traditions. I understand the environment and landscape in Jamshoro more than any other place in Pakistan. And the communities we belong to, we can work much better and effectively in those communities than other people who have to come and understand the communities first. So this is why I decided to work in Jamshoro. I moved to Karachi last year, but I travel back and forth to Jamshoro and Hyderabad, and I plan to do it for at least next few years.
I think it's a brilliant initiative, and especially because a lot of times we try and transpose, we try and take what's working in another country and put it piecemeal into our world without really being conscious of the needs of the people on the ground. So for you to be on the ground, for you to give back to the community, or actually from after going to the US and learning from that is absolutely brilliant. For an international audience, what would you say the challenges that you maybe face in Jamshoro may be different from things that people might be able to relate to abroad, especially the United States? How is it different?
So if I talk about, especially talk about menstrual hygiene or about like issues related to women, the greater challenge or the greater difference is that we are on the very basic level of understanding in Jamshore or other places in Pakistan. So we are starting from awareness and education. While the debate outside or in the US for menstrual products might be, or for menstrual hygiene might be very very different, and it might be very advanced as compared to the communities in Jamshoro. So I think the level we are is like we're so far behind in that debate, and that's the greater difference between the discussion and debate in both the places.
Can you expand on like what conversations are being had in the US around the topic and what conversations maybe you're having with people in Jamshoro just to show people the difference between the two?
If I talk about the conversations that we have in Jamshoro, it's mostly around the shame and stigma and taboo attached to the topic of menstruation, which is still there in other countries, and I'm sure in some areas in the United States or even in the developed countries. But in Pakistan or in Jamshoro, there is a culture of silence, as you mentioned that. Um, it is considered to be something mysterious. It's considered something that dirty, and we really don't talk about menstruation. Even the word menstruation or the word period is not commonly used in our country or in our communities. And this is not restricted to Jamshoro. This shame and stigma exists in any part of Pakistan. It's not limited to low-income communities or less educated communities. It's pretty much there in the wider, in every community in Pakistan, irrespective of income level, irrespective of education. Um, if you if whether it's a small shop in a local neighborhood, or if it's a fancy store, you'll always see menstrual products wrapped in a brown paper bag that you already mentioned, because we feel that our society and our community feels that it needs to be hidden because it's shameful, it's dirty. And when you see the debate outside Pakistan, especially in the United States, at least they're not being wrapped in brown paper bags. Then the the debates are very different. They're talking about pink tax. They're talking about tax on menstrual hygiene products. So we are on the very basic level when we're just trying to challenge the stigma that surrounds the topic of menstruation.
So you said we don't even use the words. What is some of the language that is used on the ground to describe it, or what would women say, or is it not said at all? Is it like Voldemort that nobody can say anything or use any
So.
words?
Mhm. Yeah. So I think the most of the communities that I work in are Sindhi speaking communities, and they have different words depending on the area. One word that I particularly want to share is they call it gandiyu, which means something bad. So in Sindhi, gandhi means something really bad, and that shows the mindset of people for periods. They think that it's something really bad. And another word that is commonly used is kapda, which means cloth, because they use cloth and not other menstrual hygiene products. So they use the word cloth instead of periods. So like different parts of different communities have different words, but still whatever word they use, they do not openly discuss about period or menstruation. They're not very comfortable in speaking about it.
So you spoke about kapda cloth. A lot of women in rural areas do use a cloth, whereas menstrual products are available in urban centers. And there is even debate around what is actually better for you hygienically. Do you have an opinion on that? Now we are also seeing tampons and cups, and there's an assertion that those are better than pads. And especially compared to cloth, which is seen as antiquated, do you feel one is a lot more hygienic than the other, or is it just about choice?
I think that it depends on the woman. Every woman has different needs. It depends on her lifestyle. It depends on her needs. It depends on her preferences. Whether she wants to use a cloth pad, whether she wants to use cloth, whether she wants to use other menstrual hygiene products. However, what we really focus in our work is that even if women in because we can talk about menstrual cups and tampons, but I don't think we are at the level at the debate level or discussion level where we can really go into the communities and start telling them to use menstrual cups or tampons because they're not even using a simple sanitary pad. So it will take time. What we focus on is even if they're using a cloth, whether they are washing it properly, whether they are drying it off properly, um, and they're not. So I've also seen a lot of women sharing the same cloth with with the other female member of the community, which is like very dangerous of the family, which is very dangerous. So we really focus on the hygiene part, and like especially for girls who go to school or women who go to work, uh, for them if menstrual hygiene products are not available, it creates challenges for them. So at least we want to ensure that these are available in small villages, in communities, like you mentioned that they're available in urban centers, but in a lot of rural areas these are not even available, these are not affordable. So so it really depends on the women, but at least they should be available. So she has a choice to, you know, she can make a choice depending on her own preference and her own needs.
So you also said that if you don't wash it properly, if you don't dry it properly, or if you share, there are health risks attached. Can you tell specifically what health risks? So for people who are listening, who might give this information out to people that they work with or communities that they work with, what useful information can you give out in terms of what are the particular health risks attached?
For example, like there's lack of wash, like there's lack of sanitation and water, enough water in these communities. So I don't really know if to blame women or not for this, because they can't really manage washing these clothes. But we still try to educate them, and if they're not taking care of the hygiene part, if they're not washing it properly, if if there's some leftover washing powder on the cloth and then they're using it, or if they're not drying it properly, because again, due to the shame and stigma, they don't have private spaces where they can go and hang these clothes. It can invite a lot of bacteria. It can end up in a lot of menstrual infections, which can be very, very dangerous for a woman's body.
So, what impact has Baithak had on this community?
So I can't say that we have achieved the kind of impact that we want to achieve, because this stigma and shame has been there from ages. But what we have really tried to do, and the kind of impact we have been able to achieve, is at least make women comfortable speaking about their bodies, speaking about issues that affect their sexual and reproductive health and rights, and making them understand that there isn't anything wrong or dirty about about menstruation, that it's a normal process, it's a healthy process. We also try to encourage mothers to be more open with their daughters about menstruation. We also work in schools, and we have these conversations with the teachers and administration, and discuss on how and why they should be talking, why and how should they should be having these conversations with these students, so young girls can get information and knowledge about menstruation in a safe, controlled environment. I think another impact that we have tried to build is also encourage other people, including both women and men, to work for menstrual hygiene management, because we definitely need more people to be working for this issue.
So, you said you also work in schools. What are some of the different challenges you face as opposed to going to a rural village where you have this conversation, or going to a school and having these conversations with teachers? Is there a difference in between some of the challenges or the blowback that you get in these two different spaces?
Absolutely. So, it's more challenging for us to work in the community than it is in schools and colleges, because we have seen that young girls are more receptive to what we say. They understand it. After our sessions, when we try and get feedback, we see that young girls understand us better, and women in the community. I think it also has to do with, because these women have had these beliefs for so long, so it's
Yes.
difficult to like change their perception or change their mindset.
But even in
So
schools, do teachers sometimes come to you and be like, what are these dirty sessions that are being held for our students? Or are the teachers and the school staff also very receptive?
we have not faced a challenge where a teacher or someone from administration came and tell us that what are you doing, because we of course go with proper permission, and I think we have received a lot of support from schools and even teachers. I have seen when we're conducting these sessions, teachers come and observe these sessions, and they try and encourage girls to participate, because of course, like, we are someone new, girls don't know us and girls know the teachers. So they really support us in making the students and girls more comfortable. So we have had
I'm
very
assuming
big support.
that schools who have issues don't invite you to begin
Ex-
with.
Exactly, absolutely, yes.
So you're speaking about the women, like how they have beliefs which they've held on to for centuries, and how that's a much harder battle to fight.
Mhm.
So you were speaking about that. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
Oh, okay. So no, I was just saying that it's more challenging to go in the community and talk to older women, because they've held these beliefs, and since very long, and so it's very, very challenging. We also see, it's very interesting that we see whenever we go into a community, we see the men of that family, of that particular family, or of that particular neighborhood, um, always like peeking around and seeing the kind of information we are trying to provide to women there, and that's very, very disturbing. Like, disturbing in a way that it's very, very distracting, not only for us but also for women in audience, because they don't feel comfortable talking about menstruation when they see men around them, or when they see a men from their family. So there are added levels of challenges in the community as compared to the schools.
So, in order to break the taboo, do you think men need to be a part of the conversation? So, even this notion that it's a word or it's an act that you can't even mention around men because it is somehow dirty or there is shame attached to it. It's important to men also to be a part of these conversations, not for them to peek in while the session is happening or try and impede into the space, but for them to also learn that to be comfortable using these words and not to judge women who use these words.
Absolutely. Yes, I think that, and given the patriarchal structures that we have, where men often have a lot of say in the matters, where they have a lot of control on the information or on the mobility of women or on the decisions of women. It's very very important for men to understand it and to understand that it's a natural process. Uh, and I think for that we really need more male activists working for menstrual hygiene management because the I can go into and I think that's something we will try to do in the future. We have not had these conversations with male students or men, but that's something we really want to do in future. But I think if I go to a boys or to an all boys school and start talking about menstruation, maybe it won't be that impactful as opposed to a male facilitator going and talking about it. So I think we need more male activists working for menstrual hygiene rights and working for menstrual hygiene management.
So, people who are listening, if they want to have these conversations, what are some of the taboos that you would like to break? For instance, something like menstruation is not dirty. That could be one of the things. What are some of these things like that that you want people to talk about, that you want people to influence their communities into thinking? Can you list them down for us?
Sure. Like you mentioned, that menstruation is nothing dirty. It's nothing toxic. Menstrual blood is not harmful. And so like this is somewhere we can start the conversation with how menstruation is a healthy process. Apart from that, like if I specifically talk about the communities and the kind of taboos we have, the kind of conversations that we've heard there, a lot of women are excluded from the daily activities of a family during menstruation. Again, because they think it's something wrong, it's dirty, they should not be part of a family meal. So a lot of women are not allowed to sit with their family, eat with their family, or touch the food that other family members will be eating. There's this perception that women on menstruation, if they touch certain foods, they will contaminate food. And I think I've had these conversations with so many people in my friend circle, and what I find really funny is that people think these things do not exist in our community only because maybe they don't treat women. Maybe that still there's culture of silence, but they don't exclude women from a family meal in their family. So they think that these things do not exist. I remember when this movie Batman was released and it was banned in Pakistan. A lot of my friends and a lot of people I saw, they were against the movie not only because they felt that this doesn't sit well with our tradition and cultures, but they also thought that we do not need this in our country because we don't have these practices. They think this is something that exists in India or Nepal or some other country or some foreign land. So anyone listening to this, I would highly encourage you people to like step out of your small bubbles and see what the reality is. Only because you have not seen it happening doesn't mean that it does not exist. So a greater taboo that we need to really make is starting to talk about it from our own families. Anyone who's listening to it, I will highly encourage you to start the conversation from your own family. Especially like I mean during Ramadan, it's a very common practice even in the elitist homes that women who are on their period they have to fake that they are having a fast because it's just too shameless to say that I'm on my period, I'm not fasting today. So start having those conversations and be more open to if your sister or if your mother or if your partner is on menstruation, just treat them like a normal person so they don't have to hide their menstrual products or they don't have to fake fasting. So just starting these conversations from our own families, from our friend circles, from our own neighborhoods.
I absolutely wouldn't want anybody to take the notion from this conversation that the problems you're speaking to only speak to Jamshoro or a particular community. They speak to problems at large across South Asia, whether that be India, Bangladesh, or Pakistan. Uh, what would you say are some of the conclusions or observations that you can draw that speak to the wider communities in especially economically disadvantaged or impoverished areas in Pakistan? What experiences do you think would translate your experiences or observations in Jamshoro, which would also hold true for a lot of rural areas across South Asia?
So if you're asking about the kind of mindset that exists in across South Asia about menstruation, that's what you're asking.
Yes.
Okay, so I think apart from the shame and stigma and taboo attached to it, one thing that I've really noticed, and I think it would sit well with all traditional cultures within South Asia, is a concept that a prevailing concept that says that when a girl gets her period, that is when he reaches when she achieves menarche, that is the first time she gets period. She is ready for marriage. She is ready for childbearing, which is not true. And even like being activists, we have to be very very careful with the kind of communication we are giving out in these communities, whether it's in Pakistan, whether it's in other countries in South Asia. Uh, so when a young girl gets her period, it does not mean that she is ready for marriage. It just means that she is starting to becoming an adult, that her body is going through certain changes. She is in no way physically or emotionally ready for marriage or for bearing child. She's still a child, and like it also kind of gets connected to how women end up, of how girls end up leaving education, because all of a sudden their parents saying now, oh, she's a grown up now, she cannot go out, she shouldn't go out, she shouldn't be going out, she cannot play with her male cousins, she cannot go out and play in the neighborhood, and suddenly they expect her to become an adult, which is not true in terms of her physical health or in terms of her emotional health. So that's kind of a concept that I feel that it does not only exist in Jamshoro, but um, anywhere in South Asia where menstruation is seen as where where there is culture of silence um, around menstruation.
So, I think it's quite inspirational the work that you're doing. You did your master's from UPenn.
Hmm.
Congratulations,
Thank you.
belatedly.
Hmm.
It was a master's in social work. For people who might be interested in taking a similar path, what exactly is a master's in social work?
So I did my master's in social policy, not social work,
Okay.
and so I think so basically it's about policy making, it's about the whole process of social change, it's about program evaluation, program development, media communications. So what really stood out for me, or what I can speak about what I learned through my masters in during my masters in social policy, was that everything that we do on ground, how that translates into greater policy landscape or greater policy making. I think that was the most powerful takeaway for me from from my masters, because I already had experience on field. I just did not know how this could translate into something more powerful, and that's what social policy is all about. Go ahead.
And what was your bachelor's in? What did you study from here to put you on a path to a master's in social policy?
I did my bachelor's in business, which had nothing to do with social policy.
The
Um,
complete opposite. From making money to doing good for the people.
Yeah, exactly, absolutely. I think so after my bachelor's, worked in HR for a while. And while I was working, I realized that since I've been working in the community for 9 years through different platforms, with different initiatives, all while doing my business studies, or while working in HR. And I realized there was a point that I realized that I do not enjoy being in the corporate world, or I do not enjoy being in HR, and I really love being in the community, especially talking about women issues, working on women's issues, and that's what really made me happy. And that is how I decided I want to do a master's in social policy, especially because I already knew how to work on the ground. I just wanted to make it more impactful, maybe turn those small initiatives into powerful programs. And this is how Baithak came into being, because I wanted to create a platform that could go a long way. So this is how I ended up doing masters in social policy, and I'm so thankful to Fulbright that I was able to do that.
I think it was a great decision that you made. It has benefited an entire community. Was it daunting at all to go from that to the US? And how was your experience like living in the United States?
It was not daunting, again, because I had been on UGrad in the US, so I already knew a little bit about culture. But it could get daunting in the first, or if especially if it's your first time in the US studying in a foreign country, it could be very, very challenging. It could be daunting. But for me, it was an amazing experience. I think I've always wanted to go on Fulbright since my UGrad time. Like I knew that I want to go and pursue masters. Like I want to pursue. I was just not sure what kind of masters I want to do, but I always knew that I want to go on Fulbright because it's such an amazing opportunity, like once in a lifetime opportunity. So it was an amazing experience. It changed my perception on a lot of things. It changed my personality. It just made me more confident in things I do, and it made me push my own limits and boundaries on what I can achieve in life.
So, people who might be interested in going to UPenn, what is the best Philly cheesesteak to eat in Philadelphia?
It so I think the best I had was at Saad's Halal, which is in the university city. A lot of people
Perfect.
might disagree with me.
I'm sure. I'm sure you made a lot of Philadelphians very angry right now, but
Yeah.
everybody has their own choice. Aisha, what I think you're doing is brilliant. I just want to speak to one last thing. You've also distributed ration kits, which include menstruation and sanitation products. These days, there are a lot of ration drives being held, and there are a lot of ration packs being sent to a lot of people in impoverished areas. How important it is for them to include menstrual products as part of these kits.
I'm glad that you brought this up. It's extremely, extremely important. In fact, like I would really encourage and request all the amazing people who are doing all these ration drives to help people. Uh, during this time, a lot of people have lost their income. A lot of women have lost their income, and women who are dependent on the male members of their family for income have also lost access to menstrual hygiene products. These and From my communications and conversations with women in the community, I've also learned that even if these are available, uh, the small stores and shopkeepers, they have increased the prices on menstrual hygiene products, and there's no way they can afford these. It's it's a necessity. Women need access to menstrual hygiene products uh, during lockdown, and there's a very popular tagline going around in menstrual hygiene management world, which is that periods don't stop for a pandemic. So even though we are going through a pandemic, we're going through lockdown, periods would not stop for it. So the challenges that women face during menstruation are still there, except that they added layers of challenges because they've lost access to menstrual hygiene products. So like I highly encourage people doing ration rice to include a pack of sanitary pads, a packet with 15 pads or 16 pads, or two packets with 8 pads each would serve one period, like would help a woman get through one cycle of menstruation. So like how we treat other items is essential. This is also very, very essential. So please include these in your ration bags.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having these conversations. And we really need to challenge this taboo. It's something that women go through every single month around the world. I don't know why we think of it as something dirty or something taboo or something that should not be spoken about. So, for everybody listening, if you can have these conversations in your communities, and absolutely it's not a problem that's limited to the rural areas, there are urban centers as well where there is equal stigma, there is equal shame in it. So, if you even within your own families can have these conversations, I think it will go a long way. There's a lot of work that Aisha Meen has done. You can look it up on Baithak Challenging Taboos. Can you give out your social medias for people who might be interested in getting in touch?
Sure. So our Facebook page is better. That is Baithak hyphen challenging taboos, and our Instagram is better.pak. That is park. And like anyone who would like to reach out to us to collaborate, especially for social media content, we are very open to it. So feel free to drop us a message.
Absolutely. Please do. Remember, menstruation is not dirty. Thank you so much for joining us, Aisha Amin, today. More power to you and all the work that you do. Thank you so much.